Just give me 1 minute. मैं कुछ तो गड़बड़ किया. हाँ. Okay. Something was wrong with the presentation. Okay, so shall we start?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, namaste.
Nice.
So this presentation is called Do Nothing Parenting. And so I'll straight away start the sharing of the slide, and then we can talk about that. Can you see?
Yes, we can see.
All right, you can see her. Okay. So this is Do Nothing Parenting. And so this purpose of this, this workshop or this webinar is to really question the way that we are, conducting this whole parenting and schooling and all that. And basically what I'm going to share with you is my close observation of rural tribal people. How there is no parenting at all, and how in the modern situation there is total parenting. And it is a research of almost 25-30 years where I have studied children very, very clearly. And the most important thing that I found in my observation and experience of rural tribal people is that there is no teaching at all. There is no parenting at all. Yet children are doing everything, learning and value generation. Everything is happening very naturally. So this is what really led me to explore these things very deeply. So what I found is that when there is no parenting, then what is inherent in you gets awakened. But when you start parenting, then conditioning begins to happen. Then it is no longer what is there inside that comes out, but that's the main thing. And the first 7 years, especially the first 3, is extremely important for a child, because that is the downloading time, or that is the rooting time. The child is rooting itself to the context. So either it can gel if the inherent, so the gelling is between what is inherent and what is outside, and so it retains the integrity. But when you start teaching and when you start parenting, it creates conflict, and it begins to fragment. And so this exploration, with that introduction, let me just tell you a few things that we should follow in this exploration. One is that it has to be a very, very meditative kind of an exploration. Don't get into an academic mind. Don't get into a too much thinking mind. You don't have to agree with me at all, but don't disagree also, because I am sharing what I have observed. And for most people, they must have read many books. And so I think you should drop the theory that has come from books, and just, try and don't create a contradiction. Just listen, and you need not agree with me, but don't disagree with me. Just hold that. And I hope some experience will help you to resolve this. But don't think about it. Don't read and resolve it, because any theory can be formulated, depending upon what do they want to sell. That's the different matter altogether. So one very important thing in my research is that the damage that has happened is in the realm of understanding itself. So we have created a myth that we have understood by reading a book. So in the 3 days, we will look at how does this damage happens? How do we become totally dependent on external source for understanding rather than trusting us? How do we become dependent on somebody who's claimed himself a scientist or things like that. And suppose four scientists say four things, how will you decide? Where is your, certainty that this is right? So I hope that, this is one important thing that we should uh, keep in mind. So another very important thing is that I'm going to use language to talk to you. And language is very linear and sequential, whereas what I've experienced is simultaneous and integral. So there is going to be a problem. That is why it is very important that don't rely on knowledge for understanding and for knowledge. It is a hearsay. It's a possibility. That's all. So keep it as a possibility. That's very important to hold in all the three webinars. This is the spirit of this. And also, when I'm showing you this slides, don't try to read. And you can do it as an experiment. Don't read, but you can listen to me. I won't skip, anything. So either you can, just avoid reading and just experiment this. So this is good experiment not to read. So learning is the basis of life. I'm just reminding you a few things about what really is learning, what is nature. So we will go into that a little bit, that what is a thing called learning? To live means to learn. It's not a choice. It is what all living beings are doing. And, one question that came to my mind is that, is it possible to restore a split milk? Is that possible? Is it possible to, restore it to its original state? But can we ensure that the milk doesn't go split? Or is there a way that we can completely take care? So in this metaphor, what I want to say is that we are the split milk, and every newborn child is an unsplit milk. So, and the container itself is the whole context, and the context includes us also. So there is this, we have taken for granted about many human things because we keep talking about human potential. But there is another very important thing that it's also very precarious. Children are actually extremely helpless when they are born, but the condition, what we provide, can either kill it or awaken it completely its potential. So there is this. I would like to share with you, one or two. There are many examples of this. These feral children. The first one that you see is a girl who was, parents were drunkard. So she was living with the dogs. And she was found when she was around 10, 12 or something like that. And she was walking, she was actually doing everything like a dog. And the other one is also somewhere in India in the 1920s. This was found. And the child, the boy that you see on right side has been living with hens. He was in a chicken coop and hen coop. And look at the way he's holding the hands. That hand has become like wings. And now what you're seeing is his rehabilitated stage, but he couldn't be rehabilitated fully because his brain development was not possible. So when they found the child was actually using both hands like punk wings, and he was using the lips, as beak. So that is what was. So I'm telling you that even the physical, the nature that we have has to be drawn out. Otherwise, I think it is true with all living beings in the childhood that if the condition is not right, then some damage is bound to happen. Now, this is an interesting case of 1930s, two psychologists adopted a baby chimp and tries to raise her as their child, alongside their real infant son, Donald. And what happened was that after 9 months, they had to remove the chimp from near the child because the child was learning to be a chimp rather than the other way around. So there are many such cases. So one important thing about this is that we are born with possibility, both in terms of our mental development and in our physical development. So what is really the nature of the child? What does it come with? What is its intention? And it is true of life. Whatever is the nature of life is the nature of child. And one very, very important thing that, that seems to be true of life is that what intention of life is that it wants to sustain life. And that is the core thing that we should keep in mind, that everything that we have is it's nature's gift to sustain your life completely. That is the, so we are actually endowed with all the design of nature. So when it actually, so this is one something that I get amazed when I see this, thousands and thousands of flowers, on the mango tree. It's bloom. That's how it is. But how many of them actually, become mangoes, and then how many finally become trees? So right at the beginning, life doesn't take any chance. It overdoes. It wants to ensure that life is sustained. This has to be kept in mind, because this would be the foundational aspect of our being. So I would like to share with you few aspects of something that I found, because initially when I began to explore this, the general feeling that we have is that humans are very intelligent, and animals are automations. It doesn't have any intelligence. This kind of things. And then I began to see some very, very interesting things about animals' life. That is when I realized that intelligence is the nature of life. And so I just share with you one, few very, very interesting videos. So this is a bull using, you can see the way the horn is being used for, operating the pump. And the other one uses the jaw. This is another cow, but uses the jaw. And in this case, it is using the mouth. So every time, it's something that makes, everybody function in autonomy, that they have, what is the situation around. Using these, understanding, they respond. So intelligence is a very, very, something that we are gifted with. And other very, very important thing that I found is, because we keep talking about value system, and value is also part of nature's design. So look at the lioness looking after an antelope. And this, I have many, many videos on this kind of things, where the prey is being looked after by the predator, especially in the childhood. So there is something that protects child. All animals child is protected by this. So I think, and one more aspect of this is that even beauty is part of nature. So there are three things that I feel that, that are fundamental to our being. One is the values that govern the lives, and second is the knowledge, and the third is the know-how. How do we function? So children are born with this original nature of life, and life wants to sustain life. And so this is the bottom line. And so when the child is born with the universal mind. It is in timelessness, and its being is in the state of collective. So I would like to share with you what are the existential conditions that ensure, that is required for a being to function. One is that it has to be in freedom. And secondly, it is born with this feeling that things are abundant. So one doesn't feel that we are in poverty and we have to struggle. Life already operates on an abundance principle. And third thing is that trust is fundamental. Without trust, we cannot live. No, this is what we are born with. Meaning, the existential condition that is available to us. And what we are born with, this is the need for our autonomous nature to function. So freedom will ensure autonomy to function. And contentment is because of the abundance that, and in general, there's no reason to be unhappy. So this is established. And of course, we are in truth. And the formation of beingness that is when the child begins to grow in the first 3, 4, 5 years. What happens is extremely important, because that is the time when its formation happens. And what happens is that the child has to be rooted to the context. And in that process, that awakening should happen. So from universal to the particular, from timeless to time, and from collective to individual. So this is the general journey of the child. And of course, it retains duality in integrity. We will come to this later. What thing? So integration of opposite. So in sustained life, there has to be a condition of trust, an ambience of love, freedom to be, feeling of security, at home with the context, unconcerned about tomorrow, feeling of abundance, and being content. So this is extremely important to state this, because precisely what is the this you can go to any small way, stay there. From my research on the modern knowledge system, they've completely misunderstood two things. One is, what is a child, what is its potential, and because of that, they've also misunderstood how a child creates knowledge. Because our paradigm is how to teach children. We are all starting with the idea that children doesn't know, and we have to teach children. Whereas my research has been on how children learn, and that has revealed a completely different kind of understanding about children. So within the context of rural tribal communities, I will talk about the rural tribal community, but this is what happens actually. The space that it's called the cognitive space or cognitive conditions is what that formation of the being happens due to that. And it includes the physical space, the psychological space, value system, presence and absence of words, the kind of words we use, all that impacts the formation of the child. And one very, very important difference between the rural tribal communities space and the modern space is that rural tribal communities, because there is no teaching, because there is no parenting, because there is no help, their cognitive space is fundamentally in the realm of unknown. This is a very, very important thing to understand. Whereas modern systems are operating within the realm of known. For example, most people would have read how to look after the child. So which means that you're operating already from knowledge. You're not being present to the child without any of your ideas. You're not observing what should happen at that point. What is the child telling you? That's not how we function. So I would like to talk about what is this thing called unknown and how does it actually operate in the in our formation. So unknown is universal, timeless, collective, in abundance, trust in truth and freedom. So this is what the possibility of being in the unknown allows us. And unknown is also, this is what enables playfulness, spontaneous exploration, rooting to the context, awakening of qualities. So what happens with this is that when you are in the realm of unknown, then observation begins to start. And observation leads to interest, involvement, which is what develops your attention, patience, resilience. So you can see the kind of, just because the condition is unknown, what really happens to you is something that to the child, to the being, is, so you're able to stay with doubt, uncertainty is okay, you can be, tentative. The wonder, humility, innocence is retained. And experience is the realm in which all these things are happening. You are never out of experience. And you are in process. And naturally, that sensitivity begins to build in this, So the key thing here is that spontaneity is the key, play and development of intuition. Because you're sensing all the time. You're not certain about anything. So known has a different kind of set of things that happen. In the realm of known, you're certain. Your inability to hold out, loss of wonder, because you already know there's nothing to wonder, no? And of course, you are in the realm of belief and superstition. And naturally, confidence, arrogance, because when people think that they know, this is inbuilt. No, see, these are things that happens to you. You may not be aware of your superiority complex or your inferiority complex, but this is embedded in the condition that enables our formation. And we will go into this little bit more detail in the later stages. So naturally, in this thing, that what happens is that we trust methods, we trust experts. Reasoning becomes our mode because we are dealing with anyway what is known, and naturally what you're dealing with is very mechanized knowledge, and fear is a important part of this, because without you seem to have fear, you don't know. That itself creates fear. Whereas in the other one, fear doesn't exist because already in the realm of unknown, you have accepted that I'm in the realm of unknown. So this is a very, very fundamental shift that modernity has done. And well, I'm requesting you, don't think too much. Let life teach you. Again, reminding you, don't believe in whatever I say. I may be just fooling you. So don't take it so seriously. So the development of our cognitive system is to ensure development of values for harmonious living, for creation of life-sustaining knowledge, and to function with total harmony with the other things. So efficiency has to be there. There has to be a certain amount of efficiency and harmony. So the brain gets developed to observe, to learn, to create knowledge, and not to analyze and store second-hand information. This is a very important point, because what our training right from childhood is to analyze and store second-hand information. Whereas our brain's capacity, it is designed, it is equipped to create knowledge. When it begins to observe, it begins to see, and of course there is a total process inbuilt into the child. Whereas in our system, we have to develop all the things, So our research is on what should be the pedagogy, what should we teach, how to teach, which year to teach. All these kind of things are now the burden of the modern mind. Whereas it is not the burden of the modern mind. It's actually the nature of life is to provide this, provided we can just, wonder, watch, allow things to happen. So this value system is most important, because that is what dictates the way we live here. So this is a very, very important things to consider, And so also the duality is in this, that it both protects both the hunter and the hunted. So there has to be a certain kind of fantastic balance that nature has, which keeps the balance between hunter and hunted, between male and female, So there are some very amazing videos that I've been seeing about how certain species of fish changes sex, when there is imbalance. Suppose there is more male, then suddenly a few of them become female. So nature is dictating all this. And I'm sure there is something that nature does to control us also. We may think otherwise because of the new arrogance that we have developed, that we are in control. No? Well, the corona is teaching us how much control we are in. So I will look at the natural way of knowing. Let me just, because this is where the crux of the matter lies. Learning is what we are completely confused. So let's look at that as the the initial thing to look at. So So I would like to just say that what is really our state of mind, the modern people. So this is not to blame anybody, and this we are actually victims. It's not that we have done anything purposely or somebody has done anything purposely. It is because the kind of conditions that are provided, this is the kind of people that will be produced by, produced. That's the thing. So superiority complex is subconsciously embedded in us. That is why we feel we behave with superiority with our children or with anybody that we think are not educated. We also have inferiority complex when we feel insufficient when we meet somebody who is supposed to be learned. And of course, and also our need for encouragement. These kind of things doesn't exist at all in the other paradigm. That's why it is important to. Then of course, deficit paradigm, wanting to help, wanting to improve others. So that's a. But people celebrate this, mistaking this is something called help. But the fact is that help can only be done, of somebody who has a superior mind, because you have to create an environment where the other person is always needing help. Now deprivation syndrome is that it's a self that you feel that you are deprived of something, so you want to give it to your child. That's also another thing that is happening. And believe in authority, this is obviously the thing. So I would like to share with you one very interesting research. It's called weird. You see, a psychologist has coined this from US, Western, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic. So what has happened is that totally the modern understanding of everything is based on research happening on the Western society. So if it is about children, it is about Western children. If it is about youth, psychology of young, teenage, it is always about what they are able to study in the Western world. And that is now then taken as universal, and everybody is trapped in the in that kind of framework, and we begin to believe that is how it is. So, and of course, if we are all familiar, we are all know that there is no research happening anywhere else other than West. So it is very important that we take charge and look at what our children are doing, all that, and don't just believe whatever so-called scientists are telling. Because just today I was reading one very, very interesting, a shocking kind of a thing, where I can share that report with you, that the attachment theory is wrong. This is now few scientists have come together, and the statement is that attachment theory is wrong. The first 3 years, children need not be attached. Nothing happens to children. This is the latest theory. Now, I'm sure there is a politics behind it, because 3 years means the mother has to take, mother or father, somebody has to stop going to work, whereas the market demands more work. And it has been, and naturally modernity has misplaced priorities. Its priority is work, your ego, and not the child. So these kind of researchers are very, very dangerous to look at. And you have to learn how to rely on your sense, your observation, that your ability to be sensitive. So this workshop is basically that I have actually, this has been my journey. I began to recover my system. I began to observe, I began to study, and so I rewired my cognitive process in some sense, actually. So again and again, I'm talking about tribal cultures only because in order to understand life, we must look at people who are nearer to nature. And of course, certain amount of distortions keep happening. But we must always look at what is the possibility. So of course, certain influences have corrupted them. But in general, in a tribal society, there's no history of rape, there's no history of theft, and madness, suicide. None of these kind of qualities are there if you go to any tribal cultures, you hardly find a person with these kind of mental problems. And other very important thing is that you will never see children being beaten there. You will never see children are ever told no. So in a tribal society, physically and psychologically, you get a very, very healthy child, integrated. mentally and bodily. So one of my very important study is on senses, because see, this is what is completely missing in our modern educational paradigm: the use of sense. So if you look at any of these theories, Bloom's taxonomy, for example, when does he talk about observation or senses or those kind of things? Because already the what you call that, the text is already what you should study is has been decided prior, so you don't have to use your senses. You will be read out to you, or you can read it. So senses are extremely important, and being in the world is mediated by senses. Through senses we see, smell, hear, feel the heat, cold, taste. So all this is our routing is actually by the senses. It is through senses that we recognize the family also. So in every way, sense is the basic thing, and awareness is the quality of senses. And if you look at children in a rural tribal society, whatever games that they are playing would be for sensitizing senses and developing all the different abilities that are required, to live. So you can see that it is just what they get from the surroundings that are being used. And this is our biggest blunder, that creation of play as an activity, not playfulness, and development of toys. Children don't need toys at all. They're exploring the world. And of course, tomorrow maybe we will spend little, the next webinar, we'll spend a little time on the damages of toys. So development of instinct, intuition, insight are to be looked at as learning tools, and this can only develop when there is autonomy and when there is no help. When a small child is trying to do anything, there is an inner urge by which it is operating, and the moment you help, you are giving two wrong messages, two wrong things. One is that you are informing that the child is not capable. Second, you are denying it's something that should awaken in the child. So just once again, coming back here, experience and the very, very important difference again between modernity and tradition or non-literate communities is that the non-literate community knowledge system makes you all the time present. And that's very important. And everything they do is for observation, exploration, interest, attention, patience, curiosity. So curiosity is a starting point, but this curiosity is not as we understand something artificial, that you have to make the child curious. Curiosity belongs to life, and it is for sustaining life. We can, understanding this, maybe we can use that, but not by killing it and then adding new kind of curiosity. That doesn't happen actually. That is not, that's destructive actually. So observation, this is extremely important. Look at the child observing, whereas the dog is not observing. The dog is trying, of course, it is intelligent, it is attempting. Whereas see, the child is observing. So I will just go through few things that children naturally do, which we have not been not been very sensitive about. This is called comparison. Comparison is one of the most important cognitive, aspect, ability or the activity that child does, comparison. So look at the way the older child observes the feet. Take his blessings. He will bless you now. Thank you. So you must have noticed how the child is comparing, finding similarity, finding difference. Now, this is the crux of the learning process. What the senses are actually doing is it's identifying something. Next time it is experiencing, there is a comparison and there is a sorting out. It is not it does not happen in language. This is what our misunderstanding is. We think that all these things are happening in the realm of language. No, it's happening in the realm of senses, and we name that experience. So taking chance is another very important activity that children do spontaneously, which is, and then repetition and modification. This is another, important thing. They like to repeat every time. And each time they modify little by little, little by little. So learning the world, now the word learning has to be understood, slightly differently. In the context of learning that I'm talking about, learning basically means that which conditions us. Because when we learn, that is changing us, that is shaping us, that is forming us. So learning is actually a forming. So what we engage with transforms us. So it's not a neutral thing that you learn and that doesn't impact you. So, but in order to understand these things, we have to get into a few redefinitions. Very common words that we are using, that has to be understood very separately in this, if you want to understand what is the natural way of how things happen. And the first and foremost thing, the most important thing is this notion of creativity. And notion of creativity is, in our understanding, it's a tool that we use. Whereas in the natural learning, creativity is the first thing that we do. Because in the realm of unknown, the only thing that you can do, whatever you do, is going to be creative. Because you don't know, you have to function. Huh? So every activity a child is doing is actually a creative activity. So the unknown awakens creativity of the child. Whereas here, what we do in our whole school system is that we kill it thoroughly, and then we have in the later years you have some strange workshops to enable creativity. That doesn't happen at all, because creativity is not something that you can learn like that. Creativity it's a condition of unknown. So in order for you to reclaim your creativity, you have to learn how to be in the realm of unknown. You have to be comfortable with in the realm of unknown. This is what the fundamental state that can rekindle most of this, abilities that has been rewired by the modern system. And curiosity in questioning, this is another very, very important thing. And curious, that is embedded in your being. And in the natural learning system, both the question and answer is in the realm of experience itself. When a child is exploring something, it's touching something, it is because there is a question, articulated in language. It is saw something, it wants to touch and see what it is. That is actually the question and answer of a child. And then, of course, it keeps building it up, and new questions form. And if they meet somebody who is also sharing similar questions, naturally they will share. But in modernity, what has happened is that experiential level of questioning and answering has been stopped. It has been shifted into language level. So the child will ask you a question in language, and then I don't know what you do normally. Quite often people will answer something, this is what it is. And you've completely killed the curiosity, the possibility of a child in holding that question. So how do we, with a child, the important thing is that how do we retain this natural things in them is what is to be kept in mind. This is another very, very, misunderstood word, imitation, because everybody seems to be knowing that children learn by imitation. Then this is what every educator talks about. But I think they really don't understand what it is, because in the natural system, children don't imitate the way modern people understand imitation. They tried one, meaning they imitate the idea of of the house and made one house of this nature, and on building as the child grows. Experience that it listen, because modernity has turned to play into three activities, in general action of a child into three activities: learning, playing, working. Working banned, you're not supposed to work, and we have slotted play in the evening, because playfulness, which is a quality, into fragmented and slaughtered. Now, this is a very, very interesting thing. The child was eating a coconut. He took one bite and he looked at it and told, that's a half moon. And then he remembered the Nandi, the bull with the two horns. No? So he goes to a temple nearby and then he told, no, that is the horn. No? So how easily the child is able to kind of recall and connect. So this is again what I'm trying to talk about as the connection, the comparison, and finding similarity, finding difference. So you will find this in every activity the child is doing. And reflection again is that the children reenact all their experiences through what we call as play. This is actually reflection in the three-dimensional space. See, we understand all these things only in the realm of language. To reflect means to remember what you read or thought or heard, That's just a mental activity. Whereas for a child, it's a physical activity. Imagination, again, completely misunderstood. Because, see, the whole schooling, the whole language is an imaginary kind of thing only. The real is the world that you experience. Language is imagination. In fact, the word reading, the root meaning of the word reading is what's called guesswork. It's a rapid guessing that you do when you read. So, but actually the imagination of a child is to take what is real and then imagine. For example, look at this. These are the children that they have in their hand. So the child is real. So they are imagining what they have in their hand is their own child. Abstraction. This is another completely, people, I don't think even know what abstraction means actually. What is absent is now considered as abstract, because we are studying abstract knowledge. No, you're studying absent knowledge. You're not doing any abstraction. Abstraction is a process that happens within the child through the process of differentiation, comparison, differentiation, and organization. It happens automatically. You don't have to create another Montessori system to teach children all this nonsense. This is what the child is born with. This is what the child is meant to do. So any method that we employ is going to destroy the child's natural system, natural spontaneity in understanding. So a very good, I'm just taking one example here. This, what he has in his hand is an umbrella frame, and he's comparing this to the JCB. So somewhere he is finding a similarity of action and is trying to remake that, So the essence of things is what I think is the, what the aspect of abstraction is all about. Innovation. Now, actually, sometimes one feels very, very angry talking about these things because this is what the child is. Why are we have to talk about these things? This is a. The other day, again, I was looking at somebody, child was doing something and they told very creative, what are you actually doing? What is something that is absolutely normal to a child? You are trying to tell the child is that no, that is not normal. Now what you've done is very creative and very, needs to be praised. You're totally demeaning the child's natural ability to be creative. So, but the fact is that we have lost all these abilities. So naturally for us, these are all new things. But actually, if you observe a child, every time you will find everything that the child is doing is falls into any of one of this kind of qualities, either innovation. Now look at this, he just got this something to play and they turned it into a broom and scoop. you know and improvisation is another really important thing that children do. Now see, if you look at all this, you will probably relate to the word jugad, which is usually the rural tribal people's way of doing things. Jugaad is actually the very, very creative act of trying, dealing with how to solve a problem. And absolutely natural to we have killed our creativity and our possibilities. So look at this. This is very interesting. The child was taking out the truck from the box. So for us, it is, he's just unpacking. But for the child, what he told was that this is the garage from which the truck is coming out. So immediately he made something up there. So he made find value in everything that is around. Invention. Well, there are so many examples actually. Now this is another very, very important thing, affordances. This is a psychological term. It's a new term that has been used. The idea is that the child sees something and immediately know what to do, even though there is no prior uh, uh, experience at all. She has never seen a binocular, but when the coconut, that leaf, that sheath was cut, it rolled itself, coiled itself, and became like a binocular. And that particular form invited her to see through this. Now there are many, many examples of this. It can be a situation that the child make use of. Other important thing that I want to again in comparison to language and real world is metaphor, because metaphor is only understood in the realm of language, never in the realm of life, in experience. That how metaphor in action is what children are doing all the time. So please understand, language is the name we give to our experience. Experience is verb and language is noun. Language is rooted in experience in the settings of natural learning. So when we say metaphor in language, already there is an experience of that happening in real world, but we have not recognized that and given proper value to that. If you understand all these things, I think you will stop making all this elaborate arrangement for schools. Now, metaphor in action, it can be form comparison, one thing with other, color comparison, texture, size, social norms, action. Now, when I make this kind of list, this doesn't mean only that much. There could be more. So which is actually something that as we experience more, explore more, we may be able to find more. So this is a very interesting thing. She had seen me using the laptop, and there was a greeting card, and immediately that turned into a laptop. So this is the formal metaphor. This is interesting. Now this is father and mother. They are standing, and now they are sleeping. So how did she make this connection? So here, of course, it's the size that has come into picture. And this is very interesting. I'm just giving you a half a second to guess what this could be. This particular, violet flower is used for something by children. You can take a guess just like that, and then. So this is the bangan in their market when they play, because they don't get anything that resembles. Otherwise, they would take a stone which looks like aloo, potato. They would take a stone which looks like egg. But for eggplant, what they did was to use color, and this is very interesting. Hibiscus used both in terms of color and form for chili, and these are extremely spontaneous. So I was just remembering something that my brother's son told me, that how children have a make-believe world and how they trust each other and how also they function with one mind. 4 or 5 children are doing things together. It's as if that they have only one mind. One mind is functioning with one mind. So immediately they are able to agree with, there is no disagreement. When somebody says, so he was sharing with me one interesting incident in his own childhood, that there were 4 of them sitting on a tree, huge tree, and imagining that is a ship sailing through the sea, and the sea is surrounding. And then somebody is pointing out and telling, look, there is an island there. And everybody is seeing the island. So there is no conflict. So somewhere there is this fantastic gelling of minds that happens. That is the reason why it is very important that adults shouldn't play with children at all, because adults don't have, especially the modern adults, do not have the beingness, the spontaneity, the nature of a child. So being an experience, let's just look at this, that imagination is rooted in experience and presence is retained and re-established. This is a very, very important thing to be understood, that why presence is what is more important, because presence also means that you are aware, that you're observing, your senses are alive, you're attentive. All this is what happens, and this is what is necessity for a living being. And traditional space, the condition allows this to happen. Inference is based on experience. Inference is another very important word that we need to look at, because every time you can't experience, but inference can be done, that you see certain things and you can infer something, this is this, and this is actually part of the process of cognition. And categorizing, abstraction, categorizing. So understanding happens due to self-organization. What is self-organization? It is just the way that you learned your mother tongue with no effort. How you began to speak, because you never did any mugging up, nobody taught you, but you were able to speak. That is because you were present, you were able to connect between experience and what that represents, and then you began to speak. So this is due to self-organization. Now, it's an immense potential that just in case of language, we can see that, many, many places where, one example is Bangalore slums, where children learn 4 languages by the time they reach 4 years, So this immense possibility for, and everything else, whether rural children learn swimming, cycling, you take any activity, you will find that children are just learning this without much psychological effort. Physical effort is different, actually. And this is another very important aspect, that children experience the whole, but their exploration is in parts. Of course, I will show you these things maybe tomorrow, but just in a sort of principle that I've observed in children, I would like to share with you. So from concrete, they imagine, from concrete, they abstract, and from experience, they infer, and other rule is that from near to far. So because, people are very concerned right from childhood, they want to teach children about dinosaurs and all that kind of things. Whereas the children doesn't have seen a cow. When you ask modern children, where do you get milk from? I mean, very few children are able to point and say. Many people don't know where chicken, the food that you eat as chicken come. So, but they know about dinosaurs and all that kind of stuff. This is a very strange kind of world that we are, creating for children. So just restating this, being an experience, your tools, qualities, abilities, skills, attitudes, aptitudes, process, it and then there is a recurring of things, refining of refining. This is what happened, that your tools get used again and again, refining happens, and this is true of all these things. Your qualities get refined, abilities get refined, but you have to keep on engaging with the world and engage it in its complexity, not in the simplification that modernity has provided us. What modernity has done is that it has miniaturized life for you. It simplified it. But now what the child will do is to further simplify it to learn it, because the child's ability is to look at something and then decode it through a certain kind of a process that is embedded in it. So what you're doing is that you are showing the child a very, very mediocre, very inferior version of the world, and you want the child to learn that. But the child is capable of learning the real world. That is the very important thing. Then another important thing that I am talking about is metacognition. Metacognition is a term that that is understood in the Western framework as thinking about thinking. I really don't know whether that is possible at all. What is thinking about thinking? But what I have understood is that metacognition is when you are using 3 attentions. So we can take the example of learning language, the mother tongue that you learned. You have paid attention of hearing. How? And this attention is, you're using your senses. You are just hearing and you are imbibing it, and you're able to speak about it. Speak the language. But the moment you have more interest in understanding grammar, then you have to pay attention to how that person is speaking. And if you want to understand that person's why is he speaking? So in one action, one attention, you are bringing in all the 3 questions together. I'm telling this because that is the way that I have understood children. That my attention is, I just don't see children, just see a child. I see a child, all the 3 are in operation. I observe, otherwise I wouldn't be able to see such minor details of what the child is doing, because everybody is seeing a child crawling or walking and doing things. But why is that we have not paid attention to the detail of all the aspects of that? So metacognition is one thing that needs to be reclaimed by. So all these things need to be reclaimed by an experiential knowledge system. Now it is in the realm of language. And so the child observes the same laws of nature. And maybe knowledge is really about awakening the child to its original nature itself. So the child is absorbing, imitating, and then it becomes, with all its complexity that this is. So this is a very, very key thing to hold, observe, absorb, imbibe. So what actually this means is that whatever you are is what the child learns. Your insecurity, your fear, your anger, your impatience, everything is what the child absorbs. So we will look into natural values, what is really value, and how that is again embedded in child. So values are dictated by life's need to sustain life. So that is something that needs to be understood. So value is not something that we teach. So what has happened is that because of our interference, because of our separation from nature, we seems to be thinking that it is all anthropocentric, it's all related to humans. So there is a total shift that has happened in that process. So so we have to expand what learning is, because when a child is, what the child learns first is to be a mother. Because what the child experiences is that the child is being taken care of. So love, care, all that is being learned because the child's totality is shaped by all the experiences. So trust is a very, very important thing to understand. That, see, in a rural situation, tribal situation, child never asks permission to their parents when they are going anywhere or for doing anything for that matter. So that freedom is given. Freedom is not something that we give. Freedom is existential. Life is what is giving freedom to all living beings to function in autonomy. Autonomy is the key word. Autonomy, without autonomy, we cannot function. And we are not able to do it because we distrust life. Again, in the rural travel situation, when a child is going out, the mother is or the parents are never after the child to find out where they have gone. They go in the morning, come back in the evening. And the mother is just not bothered. It's because they trust life. It's not because they don't care. Because they are more attuned with nature. So this is a very, very interesting event. So I would like to, just say this once again, show you this video once again. Now, this child started drawing in one page, just one page. She started drawing. After a point, the second one came, then the third one, and the fourth one. 4 children were drawing in one page. Nobody was asking permission. Nobody was denying permission. And finally, the child who started the work left after some time, and the others continued. This actually completely challenges the way that we understand, first of all, drawing, because for us, this is self-expression. And of course, we are trained to ask permission. We have to say thank you. None of this exists in the rural tribe because there is a much more deeper taken for granted kind of relationship between them. They trust, So other very important thing is the question of truth. Again, this we are thinking it's a quality, but actually again we are embedded in truth. A child doesn't know what is lie. Child is in truth, but because we are very not very careful about these things, we don't understand how we teach our children lying. So I remember, something that happened when with a child. So this child came and started telling something to me, and I realized that he's, I just thought that maybe he's lying. So I told him, tell me the truth. I did not even say that you're lying. I just told him that, tell me the truth. So the first lesson I gave him that there is something other than truth. So was my first lesson to him. Then later he came back and he actually told me a lie. And then I told him, I looked at him and I told him, now you're lying. Your face is telling me. So I gave him the second lesson that in order to lie, you have to have a different face. So, well, these are done not purposely, but this is the way that we have been functioning. We are not sensitive to the smallest of details that, but much later, I was able to adopt a child and I took 3 decisions. One was never say no to her. Second was never lie to her. And third was always follow her. Because now what we are doing is that we are dictating all the things for a child. When to eat, when to sleep, how much to eat. All these things are, and actually all these are very, very dangerous for children. You are destroying their natural systems by this kind of, you are over concern. Child is fine. And the child is hungry, the child will eat. But you don't trust. This is the biggest problem of modern mind. And cooperation, this is another strange thing, because I see in modernity, there are games to make people cooperate, teach people how to cooperate. And this is the strangest thing that I've seen in modernity. And people don't even understand that there is something problem with this. They are celebrating their stupidity. This is what I find in the modern world people are doing. And then suddenly they will find that, they are inventing new games. Go to any village, you go to any few children working together, you'll find that this is embedded in the way we are born. And that other example of 4 children drawing together, and look at what the school does, and look at what modern parenting is doing. That you are so self-protective that you are really destroying the child with your over concern. Children need freedom. They don't need your concern in the manner that it learns that something is not right. This is another strange term that we have, that we have introduced, leadership. Really, there is no leadership in the rural. When you actually look at children, they have a completely different system altogether. Leading happens, but no leadership. So the difference is that in the modern system, everything is an egoistic act. I am the doer. Whereas in the indigenous communities, doing is happening, you're part of it. You can look at the language itself. In the English language, you'll find that, of course, it will happen in the modern languages also. All literate languages will get masculinized and egoistic slowly. It's very clear in English language. When your hand is burned, what do you say? You say, I burned my finger. So every activity, I am the doer. The doership is always established in modern languages. Whereas in non-literate languages, it is not the doer, it is the happening that is important. In Hindi, it would be mera haath jal gaya. Or any language you take. So it is a happening system in which you are part of it. Whereas in the modern system, you are the center of the action.
Jinan,
Yeah.
it's 8:45, so 15 minute हम थोड़ा question and answer के लिए.
Yeah, sure. So I'll stop sharing now and we'll continue this later.
Yes. So Shashi, कैसे करते हैं? Shall we unmute, or whoever wants to, they can unmute themselves?
Yeah, I think otherwise what people have already started posting some questions here also. So we can take those questions, and then if people want, if we have time, we can also unmute and ask the question.
Yeah, you can read out also some of them.
So, generally, there are a few questions in the chat box.
Okay.
Better Shashi, you connect them and ask.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, so it will be good if everybody can post the questions here in the chat box. That will be easier. So at what age learning starts for child? I mean to ask if it starts in the womb. That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, the moment you see learning in that sense, life is learning. There is no starting actually like that, because it's first of all, that biological processes all are to do with learning. Different kinds of learning takes place because when in the womb, when that child begins to get formed, it's slowly its senses, when its senses begin to function, the kind of learning that we are talking about begins to happen. But otherwise, all biological aspects are learning only. I think, I'm sure the egg and the sperm did have some kind of learning together.
Jinanji, can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually the story of Angulimal dacoit, who turned into the Rishi, is something different. When he was in his mother's womb, some learned person, the parents met a learned person, and they said the learned person told the parents that you are carrying a dacoit in your womb. This child who will be born will be a dacoit. So the parents did all that could be done to get the child educated, and everything was very fine.
Yeah.
Till he was in his Nalanda University, he grew up and he did study something, but things so happened in the university that they pushed him out. He did something where the teachers got angry and the teachers got just pushed him out of the university, that you are not fit for studying, go away from
No,
here.
no, don't tell the whole story. Just let's stick to the,
Yeah.
yeah. So what? It's just ask one sentence and ask what's the question.
So when we are saying that the child is not lying or not born, the child is always born truth.
Yeah.
But this person who is born a dacoit, who is decided to be born a dacoit.
No, actually, listen, Adi, this is a story. I wouldn't want to deal with the story. Two things I don't do is I don't deal with history. I don't deal with books. I look at what happens to a child that is right in front of me. This is my understanding comes from experience only. So these stories, there are so many stories that you can talk about, and then it's like some expert from West is telling certain things. So that's precisely what I'm trying, requesting you not to engage with this. Look at your child, and if there is any lesson that you want to learn from the child, let's do that.
Can I ask a question?
Please don't ask like this. Yes, ask.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, how can we introduce discipline to kids if we are not supposed to teach them anything?
Are you disciplined?
Angry.
Are you disciplined? Somewhat.
Somewhat.
Then child will also learn somewhat discipline. Simple. You
But
see, you be disciplined, madam. You be disciplined. The child will acquire it.
And what
Not only that, this discipline is another thing that you need to study very well. What is this idea called discipline? So I think, you first question some of these assumptions that we have, what the child should do. Discipline means wanting the child to do what you want the child to do. That's what it is, discipline. Na? But first understand what the child wants to do. I'm talking about right from, from the child, when the time the child is born, we are totally against the child. So when is the child going to be self-disciplined? The child doesn't want to eat, we force feed. The child doesn't want to sleep, you force the child to sleep. And then everything is done for the convenience of the adult, every activity. And after all that, now you want the child to be much later, not right from the beginning. Much later, when the child has been spoiled, you want the child to be disciplined.
Okay, but my elder child is 4 years old.
No, listen, please don't get into individual these things. Let's talk about tract. This is not a place for, and this is not a workshop of that nature also.
So how can you introduce habits, like good eating habits? What if they have a sweet tooth and they want to eat sweet food all day? And
what is your habit? You like sweet very much?
I do.
So no. Let's say, I see.
But I control myself. I mean, I know white sugar is not good for me, so I control what to eat and what.
No, please, let's not get into this personal kind of discussion here. This is something, how to parent your child, don't ask that question. But that is not because this is really not about, it's about how do you become independent learner? How do you become sensitive to a child? So if I tell you, then I am also becoming an expert for your parenting. The biggest tragedy is that modern people are depending all the time on somebody for their answers. So it's high time that learn from children, because they are fantastic learners. Learn to respect their autonomy, learn to respect them. And if you have already spoiled the child, regret and try to do something about it. That's all what we can do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah, anybody else can just unmute, and because
I want to ask.
Ah,
Should we not teach anything to our children?
I don't know. What do you see? One very important thing we must understand is that we ran a school a few years ago. And one question that we kept telling ourselves is that children are going to imitate us. Are we really worthy of their imitation? You know, it's actually about control. It's about not about, what is it that we, see, look at creativity. How many of us have left with any creativity? How many of us are spontaneous? How many of us are able to be happy? So this notion of teaching children, it's all an escape route, learn from children, and then let's see if there is anything at a later stage. Initial stages, I would say, don't teach. Allow the child to respect its internal need for understanding the world. Please understand one important thing, that modern mind are cognitively damaged. They don't know what children are all about. So first learn what a child is. First understand what is learning. And also understand how teaching is very detrimental to a child's natural awakening.
Hello.
Please.
Hello. Hi. I just wanted to know something about globally, the doctors are scaring parents about the child's brain network. And they talk about the child's brain network messing up. They talk some big language, what parents can't understand. And they ask parents to take to therapists and psychologists. Can you please explain about this doctors emerging regarding in this ADHD sector? I mean, I get quite confused about why are these doctors emerging? It makes the parents more, the scary part of the world is about this. Can you please explain in detail about it?
Yeah, you see, what is to be understood is not only in parenting, but in every aspect of life, modernity is bent upon scaring you. This is the only way consumerism can thrive. Please understand this. And today, all universities are controlled by corporates, and it is not a scientist that is really in love with children who wants to do anything. In fact, if there is anybody like that, they will be thrown out. Any true knowledge will be banned because it is directly impacting the market forces. No, that's why I was telling you just today. I was looking at, you see, there are very few people in the Western world who really have understood children. This is not any kind of arrogance that I'm talking about. I have actually, see, the two paradigm difference I want to talk to you. Modern parenting, first of all, one is that they have been studying the Western children and they are imposing that idea all around the world. That is how the child is. Secondly, they are always wanting to say that the child needs help and child needs to be helped. So their premise is that children need to be taught, so you have to be, do all that. Whereas there is no research at all on how children learn. There is no research. And how this impacts the child's natural creativity gets for example, impacted when you say continuously, oh, it's good, it's very good, but that is what this encouragement is, what the modern, the West is trying to tell us, that's promoted. Good, keep doing that. So this has to be very, very carefully understood. And whatever you are telling, that please send us a link, because what I'm really trying to do is to get together a few people who are really interested in going into a deeper exploration of all this, So I'm quite, serious about if you can send us after this. Of course, if you're interested, we can form a group or something like that. You can join one group we already have and establish a proper, very, very serious research on, what is really wrong with the modern understanding. This is not true at all. Whatever you're telling is not true at all. You see, one thing that I have seen, that in a rural child, there is no anger. It's because nobody ever said to a child. Just take the case of telling no to a child.
Exactly. Yes, very good.
And look at the environment. See, look at the environment that the modern world is providing for a child. You see, as far as I understand, the child has to go through many physical activities before it begins to walk. It has to tilt, it has to crawl, it has to walk on all the fours. You know, it's a process that the physically you're designed in such a manner that that's how you do. But I doubt that today, because of the way our floors are so smooth, crawling has stopped, walking on fours have stopped, they are sitting and dragging themselves now.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's so important that, so that is why we are not at all doing a child sensitive place at all. We are
Okay.
absolutely anti-child in, you know, even the physical environment that we have created and our psychological environment that we are, through our language, through our behavior, we are not letting the child be.
Okay, thank you so much. And just one more question, please. So can you say that based on your talk, whatever you said, can I believe that the can gain experience based on traveling, where they network with people, with nature, they interact with the nature, and
Who, children?
Children, I mean, can I believe that the kids they can gain experience not from the schools, but based on traveling where they network with people
No,
interact with
traveling, see, traveling is a new drama that they are talking about. No traveling. See, the first few years, I think the child needs time for rooting itself. I think the first 2-3 years, it is better. I mean, this is my personal listing. I feel children shouldn't travel much. They should be in an environment where they are rooting themselves to the world around. Their senses are, you see, why is that the modern people are physically present, mentally absent all the time? That is our situation now. We are never present. Why do we have to go and do meditation? Because we don't know how to be present. But a child is present all the time. But how did we then become absent? Something that we do to ourselves. So we are not responsible. It is our parents, it is the system that has made us, and they are not to be blamed. Nobody should be blamed in what I am talking about. A certain kind of condition that has been formed has now turned against life, turned against child, turned against our true nature of that we are designed, equipped by nature to understand the world, to live in harmony. You know?
Okay.
So
Thank you
travel,
so
all
much.
that, you know, this is a new drama, all this, you know, again, all these ideas are coming from the West. See, homeschooling is again a very dangerous kind of situation. You know, all these things has to be, I think if there is anything, see, for example, I want to tell you, you know, give you an example that if you want to study dogs, you have three you know, options. One, you go to the jungle and study what a dog is. Second option is that you look at the dog on the street, which is not helped by anybody. Third is the dog that you have in your house. Which one will you study to understand what is the true nature of a dog? Naturally, it can't be the one that are conditioned by the home environment, you know.
Yes.
Because, you know, you're feeding the child all the time, or the dog all the time. This is exactly what is happening in the modern world today.
Exactly. But how do you say, suppose the dog which is inside the premises is like school, in the boy or girl inside the school premises, right?
No, let's start from the home. School is later. You see, right from the time a child is born, please understand this. When a child is born, the child is born with its original possibility. Please understand this. It is not at all destroyed. Every child is born with the potential of any child in a rural tribal area. To be autonomous, to be free, to be everything of that nature. But because we systematically destroyed, because we are not that we know, we are not responsible, because we are not, you know, we have been conditioned. We have never paid attention to this. It's high time we pay attention to what is the child, you know, how does the child learn, and what is the world. Should we learn, you know, so the very idea of teaching, very idea of school, all these are introduced by modern systems, you know.
Okay, so how do we escape? I mean, how do we live in a modern world. The ambience is like, you know, we live in different places where this is not places are not rural anymore. Places are not villages anymore. We don't have good fresh air, fresh nature surrounding us. Everything is built. The trees are built in the places which we uprooted them and then built in different places. So how do the kid get to know that how do
No,
the
you see, we have a foundation. It's called Existential Knowledge Foundation.
okay.
And people ask me, what is the time frame that you have in mind? And I tell them 1,000 years.
Okay.
It may take more also. But you please understand that we have to now start preparing for a world maybe 4 or 5 generations hence. Because the way we have destroyed everything is quite unbelievable. You forget about all this. Just think about the food that we are eating.
Exactly.
Where, you know, all the food that we are eating is poisonous. What is the option? So these things should be looked at in totality. It's just not the child. The air we breathe. You know, thank God Corona, because I think things are getting fresher actually. You know, people are stopped moving out. And I think something fantastic is happening for nature at least, you know.
Yes, yes. It's
So,
fully observed.
so I think it has to be understood not just from the child, but the whole modern civilization is against life. So in that, of course, the child is also having problem. You see, for another thing that you see, that aren't we all in the modern society busy lying to each other? Our default has become lying. You look at any advertisement. Is any truth in any advertisement that is being told you? So where do we get an experience? So whereas in the traditional societies, lying is not understood in that manner. But that is not in you. You would tell in front something you don't like.
Exactly. It's out straightforward things.
Absolutely.
And
If they get angry, they get angry. They don't play
yes.
hide and seek.
Yes, exactly.
So there are, you know, so to me, we have to start right now with whatever is the situation. The child is there, learn from the child. This is the first thing. You know, if a child is to be born, create, a different environment. See, one very important thing is that why do we have so many furniture in our home? Do we need it? And in fact, tomorrow I will, talk about how toys are the most dangerous. It's even dangerous than schools. Why are our homes filled with toys? Do children need toys at all?
Yeah. Yes.
So there is a total misunderstanding of modern mind. And the market is not going to leave you. They will keep convincing you that, no, I am all wrong. Children like toys. If you give toys, their brain will develop. All that they will say. You know?
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you so much for your answers.
You see, the difference is this, that we are supposed to understand the real world. If that is the thing, then the world and life has given us that abilities to understand the real world. But you can kill it and then turn it towards books, and then you will learn the books. And you can use all your tools for a mediocre way of understanding the description of the world. You know?
Either do we advise homeschooling nor modern schooling is to be taken? Then
no schooling. No schooling.
Okay, no schooling.
Yeah. No, schooling means you are against the child. Child's nature is to learn. If you school the child will learn. You see, why do you want to turn all the children into mediocres like us? Aren't we? You look at the educational scenario in this country. Third-rate education. We just pretend that we have all degrees. You know, aren't we ashamed of this situation? So why are we telling that we send the children to this third-rate schools? First, understand that. See, our possibility is to be genuine, to be geniuses. Genius means to be genuine, to be truly interested in anything. You see, I got interested in all this because when I was doing engineering, I found that in my surroundings, in my friends area, I did not find even one person who is truly interested in learning. That got, I took more attention to that and I began to explore that, and I found that no faculty is interested in learning. They're all busy teaching. So this is a situation that we have created. And why did we learn? To get a job. Engineering is studied because you can become a clerk somewhere. What else do you do? So, I have a degree in engineering, but I feel ashamed to tell that I'm an engineer because I'm not. I have a degree. I have, read something, and of course, half of it I've copied and passed. This is the situation of the education paradigm is this. If you're talking about learning, then we should talk about true learning. If there is a deeper need for learning, there is a possibility which we are denying by the kind of systems that we have created. There is beauty in learning grammar. There is beauty in learning everything, actually. To understand the world, it's beautiful, actually. But what has education helped us in understanding anything? This is what. Understanding means not your reasoning mind understanding, not your assumptions about it. But true understanding means what have you explored? What have you understood within your being? That's the...
Hello, Jinanji, I have a question.
Boliye.
I'm sorry. I think we have to.
We have to stop now.
It's already.
Just this one more. What? Just this one more question when we stop.
Okay, this is the last question and we can stop it. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, I just, after listening to you over a few times, and so I just wanted to move to Ahmedabad, to do permaculture. And there's a Gurukul teaching you with the ancient method, farming, being with the cows. And it pushes the child only in the direction which it is good at as a potential, not any threatening. So I'm wanting to move to that environment. I'm in Delhi, want to move to, because my husband's learning about permaculture and to...
tell me the question, please.
Is this a good decision based on if I'm moving just for what I want to give my children, what you're talking about? Will this help?
Okay, we have a deal. Give me 10,000 rupees and I'll give you the answer.
Okay, it's too worth it. I can give anything.
No, this kind of questions we don't ask. If you ask these questions, keep 10,000 rupees and then ask all questions. And this will not be answered at all. Okay, so we will stop here now. But please send your, you can email your questions. Let's see if we can handle it sometime during the 3 webinars, or later we can also have another session just answering these questions or something like that. Let's, Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kiranji.
So helpful. Thank you.